Good morning, good morning, good morning. You are in the right place for how do I launch a PR campaign for bakery business. Come right up in 1 or 2 minutes, let some people jump on here, grab a beverage, water, get some coffee, tea, have something to write with, something to write on. It's going to be jam-packed as we talk about one of my favorite subjects, PR for dessert businesses. Talk to you in a moment. See you very, very soon. All right. All right. Yes, we are here again, back for another free Sunday class for the month of August. Thank you everyone for joining. We appreciate that very much. I know you could be anywhere, as they say, and you decide to be here. And this week is going to be good. This week is going to be full of information. If you saw, and let me take care of this music here. And if you saw, we have a downloadable packet, a little workbook for you that has to do with the subject. And our hour together today obviously is not enough to approach the subject, but I am Jimmy MacMillan from Pastry Virtuosity, as you see over here. And my brand, basically I'm a consultant for bakery and dessert businesses, working with business owners. That's what I'm doing most of the time these days. But part of my business and my plan is always to give back to the pastry chef and dessert business owner community. This is where I came from. This is where I am. I'm still doing this work every day. And I believe that if you don't share, if you don't give it away, you really can't grow. So in behalf of all of our growth, we're here with these free classes. And I have had a class a couple years ago. Some of you may have seen, I just recently re-released these, so anyone watching this wants to view those 3 sessions that were how to be your own publicist, the pastry edition. You can look under the live, I'll have it in the playlist, and that workbook that I have downloadable in the chat is from that. And so there was 3 sessions. If you're interested more in that, you can reach out to me. My Instagram, at Jimmy MacMillan, my name, just at Jimmy MacMillan, real easy. And then you can also send me an email at info@jmpurepastry.com. But I'm easy to find. If you're interested in more, we will start and we'll dive in. I'm going to show you what this packet looks like. And this was, again, 3 hours with some coaching in between to customize what that packet was. But these are some of the things that we want to think about when it comes to publicity. So we'll use these. I have 3 workbooks here. If you have one downloadable in the chat again. If you're interested in the other 2, let me know, but we will be referencing them today. And then you can watch the videos. They're released now, also free, so watch them. I'll keep them live. And there's a lot of content. You can skip around. Encourage you to do that if it's interesting. Basically, I'm going to back up just a little bit. Basically, PR is expensive, right? If you hire a publicist, I think it's very worthwhile. There are a number of great publicists. We're here streaming to you live from Chicago, and Chicago, being a major city, has great publicists, great PR agencies. You can really get support for that. But it's going to cost, right? It's going to cost. And I, as a small business owner, just as a person in the world, would love to, decrease those costs, control those costs, or control part of the process. And I think in the food space, for food businesses, for chefs, there's a lot we can do, right? We're a very capable style of business owner. We're not often completely hands off. So anything you can do for me that cues it up for an agency. I mean, there's some misconceptions. So let's get the misconceptions of, PR out of the way. The first one is if you hire somebody, you're going to get published. You're going to get a number of stories here and there. You'll get appointments everywhere, and your brand will blow up because you hired a publicist. And that's simply not not how it works, right? The structure, that's not how it works. Basically, you still provide content to an agency or a publicist or your social media manager for them to broadcast. It's sort of the business job, the chef's job, the business owner's job to understand what those things are that you want to share, and arm your publicist with that. So if you're going to be your own publicist, it's great because you really know that you have to develop the message. And maybe you have this discussion, you listen to this, you do some of the workbook. Now you have something to share, and it really sets you up for hiring a publicist. The other thing is somewhat of a misunderstanding of the difference between PR, marketing, and branding. And yes, they do relate. They feed off each other. They work together. That's really important, but they are not the same thing. And it's important to understand that there are some differences there. So, what are those differences? In broad strokes, the difference is really, when you build something and you're proud of building it, and you want to tell people about it. This is what we're having the story, that public relations, how we look to the world. Marketing could just be packaging, promoting the product that you made, and in our business, the service related to the product is also still a product. So that's important. And then branding is just like the overall tonality of the brand. And so, like I love a certain kind of coffee, or we like certain kinds of uniforms, or we like the way our business looks, or there's some photography. And by seeing those images over and over and activities related to key people in the business or the lifestyle of the person who shops, we can brand the business. So when we see like the logo and an image of someone a certain way, and the branding's so strong that if you saw a completely different client, if you saw it was an adult brand for athletic gear, popular athletic gear, and then all of a sudden there's just kids, you have questions like, what? I thought this was a brand. And if it's purposeful, it's great, but those branding, it's a full-time activity also. But we're really just looking at what it means to just be involved in the PR of it. And I think being involved with business owners, building the business, what is exciting to me about it is PR allows you to share that message. If you ever sold anything, if you, and I have to tell you, if you don't know, you're our salesman already. And I know that on the chef side, sometimes we don't like to be salesy, but really we're always selling, right? We're selling ourselves. We know that on some level, however we want to think about it. Service is really a form of selling too, and a form of that component of why would you build a business and not be excited to share what you made? So if you build something, you love it, you're excited about it, go ahead and share it. It should be natural. But for some reason, we get hesitant sometimes, or we know our business really well. We get kind of tired of saying it over and over, but we don't realize we're often talking to a new segment of the business. So we get tired of the message, our employees get tired of the message, our key managers get tired of the message. We know that already. And sometimes we feel foolish saying it again and again. And I do too. However, I'm saying that for the person I haven't reached yet. I'm saying that to someone who may not have forgotten, or may have forgotten that we're there, right? That we exist. And if you build something, you spend all this time and energy, we really need to spend as much time being excited and getting that out there. So if we look at this packet that I gave you, the goal really is to make a name for yourself, for your business. What's publicity and why do you need it? I think it's clear that if we don't share it, like I just mentioned, we can't expect many people to know about it. And we don't want to make a business that's so exclusive that our key customers, our key clients, our fans are the only people that know about it. We need to be able to share and kind of control that process. And again, we talked about advertising versus publicity, right? So like marketing, advertising, kind of like paid promotion for what we do. But publicity, publicity is out there. No one can really control it. So like having someone that's reputable tell your story, be excited about it, say, hey, I heard this thing. Even if someone you pay and then they get a third party to tell you, we know that certain sources can't be swayed. Some sources we just say, yeah, that was probably paid for that messaging. But some sources, that's where tastemakers really come in. Whether we all agree that tastemakers have a key function for us, I think, again, in food businesses, and when they're telling those stories, people listen, or like, and I really think it's the synergistic, components of all three combined. You telling your story, some paid things that are marketing, some messaging from someone that you don't pay that's equally excited. Why are Google reviews from customers so compelling, right? Because we feel like they're not biased. And so that's important. For the impact of publicity, this creates a few things, right? A few dimensions. It's the dimension of you as the expert. As you continue to talk about these things and you become an expert, people will trust you. So now when we're able to increase our media exposure because maybe there's a story on what the experience of a bakery owner in Chicago is, we're going to reach out to those people that are known, that are in the PR space. So it's not necessarily just a story about your business, but the opportunity to contribute in general increases. And of course, selling the products and, educating and shaping the public opinion and just that overall credibility, right? Showing that expertise. So why are other people in the news and you're not in the news? So some business owners, chefs, food industry people may feel like, I see the same people all the time getting the press. Why are they getting it and not me? They must have a great PR person. They must be doing something, the fact is they are doing something you're not doing. But a lot of that is just sharing with the media, packaging the message, delivering it to the right people, and then being available. And I'll say like had the benefit of being very widely published. I like to write. I sought out certain magazines. If I wanted to have a story or presence, I feel like it's a very attainable. Just to understand the audience for that publication. If I want to be on a local TV, if it's something that's interesting, so deciding where you want to be is important. But for me, every time I decided, I was able to accomplish it by putting together a plan. And so the key component is putting together the plan first. Like, where do you want to be? The reason others are there is they have a plan, and they work that plan. And the other thing is making yourself available. It is almost the most important thing. In PR, in media, they don't have the same time frames that we might have in other businesses. And often the opportunities come late, and they have immediate deadlines, or they may not be perfect fit for what we do. And sometimes we say we don't have time because we don't have time. We don't have time for anything, right? This weekend is back to school, right? There's the business needs, the everyday, and this always seems to be outside of it. But really it's almost like 40-50% of your business, being able to, the whole package of PR, marketing, branding. So if we're just doing all the work of trying to sell, trying to provide the service, we're really like only doing half the business, in my opinion. And we're not doing the half the business that assures we'll continue to get more business. So those things are all very important, and making yourself available when it's uncomfortable. But that is another reason why certain individuals get stories that others don't. They just jump on everything. If someone says, do you have a story? I mean, you're making right now at the bakery, are you making any pâte à choux, interesting desserts? And you may not be. Don't say no. I mean, you can make pâte à choux, right? You can make something interesting. You can run a special. You think about those things, right? It's in your business space. Say, of course we have something, right? And develop some months for a few weeks. This is all really possible, right? This is all really possible to get going for the right reasons, to maximize on the PR. So publicity plan is what I would encourage everyone to make. Even if it's very simple, for the most part, the more simple, the better. The more simple, the better, right? Just outline first. We can always make our life more complicated, all right? I can say that firsthand. So the components here would be a publicity outline. Looks like it's not showing all the screen, but I'm going to read this off to you, and it'll just be like you and me talking. So the publicity outline, it's really important. It just defines like the audience and setting the goals, and then a media toolkit where you kind of roll up that information, and then an editorial calendar. And so I'm going to show you part of this publicity plan here. Let's see. So the publicity plan is in the workbook. It's just a guideline for the outline. You don't really need one, but it helps guide the process. So you have, what's your current situation relative to publicity? What's the current problem you need to solve? Where do you want to be? What are you not grabbing? Who are you not getting to? And then the objectives, just some more detail. And how will you know when it's successful? How will you know? And again, we know if we can't measure it, it probably can't. We don't know that it happened, that we arrived there. So again, some real clear ideas. If we wanted to be, and some can be simple. More print exposure, even though that's not what we think of as primary these days. It is good to get into certain key publications that we know are big in our area. The audience, how many of us are clear on our audience, and how can we expand it? Do we think we know who our audience is, or do we just assume? And if you assume that these are the individuals that like what I have, I think differently. I think, how can I get others to convert over, and especially existing businesses that have a really dedicated fan base, customer base, client base. It's easy to say, like, that's my lane, and it's good. We hear that all the time. Stay in our lane. Stay in your lane. I don't think that means don't grow your lane. I don't think that means don't consider if others would join the lane. And I think in certain cases it just doesn't apply. Certain businesses can have several key customer groups, so we can always talk about, should we niche down, right? That's the other one. Niche down, be really specific. That's good. That's really good. If the business you're in only requires a very small amount of people, customers, clients who use your service because it's like a longer term service, or they just become so hooked on something that they're eating all the time. If that's the case, maybe the smallest niche is good. But I think it's okay to consider those things all the time. If it's working, great. But I don't think with PR we can ever just stop, right? That's you'll see it go in waves. I've hired people to help with my PR. I've hustled and done a lot independently. That's why I feel I can talk on this. And in either case, right, as soon as you let your finger off the pulse, it drops down, right? Your presence drops down. So I think the key is to stay in constantly, consistently, and really kind of guide it with this sort of publicity plan. Some other components of the publicity plan is the tactics, like how do we want to get there? So that could be some paid, right? Some, partnerships, whatever that means. Is some things that I'm going to do. And then down at the bottom here, which isn't really visible, is the, budget. How much is this going to cost me? and then just the timeline. How much time are we going to give it to see that it happens? So if you get a chance, download that. That's the first part of it, is just getting that editorial plan together. I'm going to flip over to, and if you watch the first video, all of that will be detailed out. That's the How to Be Your Own Publicist, which is, really, instead of 1 hour of me talking to you about, some of this and the overview, I think we've covered in 20 minutes 30% of that 3 video course, and each of those is almost an hour long, so 40 minutes long, something like that. So by all means, you want more information, jump in there. And then let's look at what would be part 2. We've got this editorial plan, and you can print one out again in the chat. You see, print that page, write it out. And here we have build your ninja PR kit. So working on a PR kit, once you have an editorial plan, we'll do a PR kit and a calendar. That's the main thing. So let's see if I can get you a little better look at these things. All right, so here is session 2, the PR kit. Trade versus consumer versus online. I've got here a filled out, editorial plan like we were talking about. You see here we have filled in, just to give you a guideline. Note like some of the goals, right? Become an expert. And one of the side benefits of becoming an expert is maybe eventually you have another vertical in your business, which is speaking gigs where you're paid to talk about it, which is good PR, by the way. So like becoming an expert, and I would say in the food space, if you've been working for a few years and you own a business and you're doing pretty well, 3, 4, 5 years. I know a lot of businesses going on 10 years in the bakery space with no problem. Not easy. I don't mean like it's no problem to get there. I mean, we can see that business is going to continue. I would say you're an expert, and probably in our circle of professionals, you may be regarded as an expert, but getting the public to appreciate that just requires you systematically being out there. Just requires you to get organized a little bit. And then as you become an expert, then again, you get written about. So that expert status is, I think, an enviable position for someone in the food space. We talked about selling to new audiences, updating your image, maybe you're a business owner that's been behind, in the background. And this is just a choice. Like all of us don't feel comfortable, hopping on social media, doing lives, talking about our business, and becoming, known as a person that owns this business. Some of us, and I think it's also a good approach, the people that run the business that you see when you go into the store, that's the face of the business. Or it's so product heavy, like in consumer packaged goods, where we really just want to understand the product. We're not really telling the story of the people in the product. And again, those are just choices. I can't say one is better, one's wrong or right. It really depends on how the business is built, what the product is. Some strategies, though, for all of those is like, how are you going to leverage, the PR team? What are those stories? We've got to write them down. We can't just say we have this one. Sometimes you just have one story too. The story of the business. I started it a while ago. It was tough, of course, right? Oh, it was a little tough. We overcame that. Now we're in multi-units, and like people love our stuff. It's not really a story. We mean the ongoing stories of the experience. And this is the best way for me to think of it always is, what is the experience of eating the product? What is the experience of using the service? The experience is different for different customers, but there's a story there that helps others relate that are similar to what that is like. Just knowing that you have a cookie is great, but a lot of people have a cookie. But if the experience of getting that cookie is somehow unique, better, interesting, exciting, consistent, and what is the consistent experience? Is the experience that the cookie is always warm? Is the experience that I'm greeted people sometimes know my name. I'm treated like a regular. Is it the experience is efficient? Or maybe it's on the other side. It's so good, but you have to wait while they warm it slowly in the oven. And sometimes that anticipation can be part of the experience. And like those moments are easy to convey, but just saying that you have a cookie isn't that. And then, we talked about the timeline a little bit. What's the publication date? What's the delivery date? What's the start date? Get these up and worked out. In a media kit, and I'm going to show you, I have like a simple media kit that I made a while back. Just have some photos and like you get a little bio and accolades. And that can be all it is, depending on your goal. But you definitely want to have, like in your press kit, like your biography, right? Media kit, press kit, same thing. You want to have, your biography, your background biography, products and services, any previous press coverage. We're talking about the media kit here. So like, what did you do already? If precedent is great, if you've already been written about, even if it was not so recently, but it's really interesting, maybe I was in Martha Stewart, maybe I was in So Good Magazine, maybe I was in the local press. All those things paint a picture of like that we should be compelled to write about it again if we have a new story, right? If you told your story the same thing over and over, right, it's really not interesting. And I think that's why you see when businesses open, you always get press. When a chef or key person in the sweets industry moves to a new position, you get press. And then barring that, like almost none, unless it's the holidays where you're talking about the offerings, which can feel generic and it's kind of rolled up. And so again, creating stories and letting people know why they should pay attention to what you're doing is really important. And then the contact info, like just make sure that contact info is really, really clear. A lot of times we look at press and media kits and it's actually, I don't know who to reach out to. And just like, and sometimes it's written really small. I mean, this is like the point really is like, for booking, reach out to this person. For media opportunities, reach out for this. If you want specific ones, and that's just like the beginning. Like you have this baseline PR kit, and then you think about some other opportunities after that. So food and lifestyle magazines, trade magazines. And I think sometimes businesses err on one more than the other. Certainly for chefs, like we are somewhat focused on industry magazines. As pastry chefs, there's very few of them. Sometimes it's hard to get in the bigger stratosphere depending on the makeup of our business. But I think really we know the exposure from a consumer magazine is probably more speaking to a customer base than the consumer for a trade magazine, which is other chefs, right? So sometimes don't fall into the pitfall of saying like we're well published because we're in all these pastry outlets and bakery, or there's so many like interior trade magazines too, which really talk about the nuts and bolts trade for manufacturing, for food service, for restaurants, for hotels. I think they're both important. I wouldn't say go away from that, but really where the media outlets that our customer might be exposed to. And then online, this is something that's good to talk about in terms of what are we really doing with our online presence and social media. And I don't know, maybe put in the chat, raise your hand at home, even though I can't see at the moment, but if we think that posting every day on social media is productive and we know it's productive, or do we post every day on social media and we feel like it's productive, or we just feel like it's what we're supposed to do? And like everyone, you'll just hear different things all the time, right? The algorithm has changed. Again, one of the messages here is controlling the conversation, right? Controlling the storytelling. And in a lot of ways, social is great. Like, it's really good. I think in one sense, though, you're either a person who generates, or a business that generates stories, or you're someone that consumes social media. And it's very hard to do both, because if you're a business owner, that's my opinion, it's Jimmy talking, if you're spending a lot of time looking at what other people are posting, you probably should be posting your stories and messages. Like almost just get out of there, right? Just get out of there. And unless you really enjoy copying, it's not bad to see trends. But I think, again, if we're looking for what's differentiated, as we could say, what's unique about you, so much of social media lends toward copying that I think it's just confusing to customers, and or really not that compelling. So it's easy to flip through. I see a lot of the same thing. A lot of people are doing tricked out Sundays. Why would I choose one over the other? You got the most tricked out Sunday, maybe. And so really, when you're consuming, I would say, like, if your goal is to promote your business, be better at PR, and actually increase customers and get more clients, set a timer. And if you're just watching in general, when it comes to social media, you have so many options, right? There's a lot of platforms, right? A lot of platforms where you can take this message that you have, this message that we're saying to develop, you can take that message and shoot it out anywhere. For me, and I think everyone's catching up to this. I think a lot of individuals are catching up, that the social media outlets that disappear quickly, there's so many now, right? We don't need to call any of them out. There'll be more in the future. It's interesting because it feels like it's real time, right? And oftentimes it is, right? This is something that's going live, something I just posted. A lot of it's still repackaged, but it goes away. So to me, it's not a good spend of your time. I mean, if you had something like a video that stays posted always, where, like in the case of this video, we have this live. Last week, 50, 60 people joined after, or rewatched after, to get the content. And so I could take that video and then, make clips. In fact, there's a lot of cool tools to make those clips. There's some AI-based video tools that will chop up a clip into easily digestible small units that you could post on those temporary social media platforms. So again, once you build, your goal with PR, then when you start, and again, we're talking about you doing it yourself. So if you were, take a little more time to build a longer video, then you can chop that up and divide it and go through the different platforms and spread it out. And those that are temporary and go away, it won't matter, because your key message is still going to exist. So a little bit of my 2 cents there. But there's some other places where I think it's great to get exposure. So some of those places, like some exclusive online content. Maybe you want to create a membership, on one of your channels, where you have, this is what you're always posting. But if you want things that are downloadable, if you want something a little more, you can go there. Online communities and message boards. This is sort of like an underrated and maybe underutilized area, where you seek out places where people gather that love dessert, or and these are often free, right? So you have this message, now we've written it down, we have some stories, and you can kind of just tease those things out, and always just give a link to your business, give a link to an event you're doing. Newsletters, there's a number of those. How valuable any of these are really correlates to if you think your target audience. So once you identify that audience and several brackets of that audience, then you're able to really go after more and more shares of it. And I don't know about you, I think the thing that gets my attention most is when I start to see the same offering or brand, or maybe a different offering from the same brand. I start to see that in multiple places. So over time, subtly, it's like, I don't know if I see something once and I'm gotta have it, I'm just gonna go there. We're so inundated with things, and I've kind of built myself to be to push some of that away, because I don't want to buy it a lot of stuff all the time, right? And try to keep some money, for the business. But then you start to see I like, for a while I was working, after leaving luxury hotels, was working for really well-known grocer here in Chicago, Mariano's, later purchased by Kroger, getting into that grocery space and working with their bakeries. But the reason I joined, because I didn't think this was the best, natural step for me, turned out to be great. I learned so much having so many in-store bakeries underneath me, trying to get them to come to this higher level of offerings. But I would have never joined if I hadn't, over time, they were building like a store or two or three every year. And so as I would travel, go about my day, I'd see another store. Oh, it's coming soon, another Mariano's. Oh, coming soon, another Mariano's. And then just reading about it and people saying, oh, I went to this Mariano's, out in the suburbs. They had this cool thing going on. They're doing these Parmesan wheel cuttings. So I'm like, what are they doing, right? That PR that they did, that organized storytelling and creating theater in a grocery store got my attention, even though there was no way that I was even thinking about, this was the place that I would work. And really for shopping, I was good. I had the places I go. But when you start to see something about your brand in 2, 3, 4 different places, you kind of wonder what's going on and you go check it out. And so that, again, is that synergy that we're looking for, is create, again, you wrote all the stories, you know what the plan is. One thing that assists that is an editorial calendar, and we'll get to that shortly. But then just some, while we talk about online, just kind of wrap that portion as we head into the third portion, is, keeping it simple. We have this funnel. You can see this picture here. Basically, we're bringing all these things in. I know it's sort of a marketing term for funnel, but it kind of is accurate. We're casting broad, and then we're bringing people closer into the brand. So keeping it simple, doing that campaigns, again, like by calling it a campaign, by making it organized time frame, and how do we reach our goal, what's the KPI for that, how do we know how we got there, and then maybe investing in the website a little bit. Talked about social media marketing. Collaborating with others is great. I think we all like to see brands that we love. So the thing about collaborations is be careful. Like, at what point is it an equal branding partnership, or is one brand really helping out the other too much? And the best collaborations is where they really work. So maybe one brand is more popular but reputable in the space, and the other brand is less known, but maybe they're cooler, right? Like, maybe they're just cooler because they're less known. So now you have they both win by borrowing the experience and attributes of the other brand. Where it doesn't work well is and I've seen pretty frequently, is a giant brand who probably doesn't need much in the way of PR, but is kind of just grabbing everything because they're really organized. They have the resource to try things, and they try a lot of things. I often look at the bigger brands to see what they're doing, because I know they have some resource and they spent some resource in that area. Larger brands, those giant brands, will pick a small brand who is very cool, maybe just getting started, a couple years in the marketplace, and take that small brand and blow it up. And the damaging thing there is I don't think it helps the small brand. From my opinion, the small brand kind of may pay the price, because that there's no long-term commitment there. So when you have that giant brand co-opt a smaller brand, just be careful. If you're the smaller brand, it could be exciting, and it's just timing too. Like, at some point, a partnership with a giant brand may make sense, but I think there's steps, especially if you have some juice, right? If you've got the coolest brand, you got the sizzle, right? People talking about it. What are they doing? That's kind of cool. It's hard to get it. It's limited, and that's going to change. There's a few steps between that and like these, big grocery store, and you'll see that retail brands now are out looking for smaller businesses to partner with or get some. And again, I'm not telling anyone in business not to do it. Just saying, be careful on the timing. Maybe it makes more sense to go with a smaller collaboration, and then like a medium-sized brand, and then get to the larger brands. But just think about what happens on the other side of the collaboration. Is there a commitment longer than a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, where they really, really are committed to your brand as well? Another area would be outbound marketing. So, some of this a little bit more old school, dated, trade shows and, sending direct mail and email marketing. I wouldn't give up on those. Some businesses don't have any of that, right? They just kind of abandoned it in favor of some newer style of marketing. But I think email marketing is still stronger than many of us realize. But just think in your own experience. I still open up my emails, right? I get flooded, but there's a way to work with email marketing and touch more people, right? And people are still using email. They can use it on their phone. They can opt in, they can opt out. The key, I think, for email is just don't make it boring, right? Like overall, just be interesting. For all PR, it's really what's interesting. And clickbait is something that is interesting for the wrong reasons, right? And there's an audience for that. I don't think that's what any of us. If you're tuned in here, that's probably not your lane. But you can kind of be interesting. You can be daring. You can be a little bit leading. And I think as long as you deliver value, good storytelling, have a great product. I mean, that's what it all comes down to, right? If you have a great product, you can do a lot of things. You can get away with saying things. You can make claims, right? Because at the end of the day, you are so convinced. And I think all of us here, if you have a business, if you're a chef and you provide a service, we have to get to the place where we're convinced that we're either the top or top 3 of our industry in what we do. And if you're not and don't think that, why are we, one, what do you need to do to get there? And if you're not willing to do that, why are we in that space? I mean, to be honest with you, it's too hard, right, to just throw your hat in the ring, and maybe you had an appetite for it before. And this business kind of, talk about the food business, hotels, restaurants, all of it, manufacturing, the whole, everything. It's great. It's exciting to me. I just love it, but it kind of will beat you up, right? It'll beat your employees up. The marketplace in general can be volatile. We've all seen that. So you have to somehow still have the appetite to get back up. You still have to say, I want to be the best in the space. Because if someone knows more than you, if someone has a better product than you, if someone's better at PR, if someone's better at marketing, if they've got a brand that people love, they will beat you most of the time. Customers may migrate a little bit over and try some things out, but chances are they're just gonna be better than you at everything. So without 110% effort, without getting 30% more volume, going after that, the goal should be increasing 30% more volume of sales, or 30% more frequent purchases. Using your business more often by the same raving fan customers, or you could do 30% new business. To me, always seeking new client, new business, but that's the harder one, right? Because at least with the customers that you have, and I think the last one would be raise your prices, right? Hey, well, we have this, if we just raise our prices, well, if it's justifiable, cool. But in reality, just getting your customers more informed about items you have, developing something exciting, doing more frequent promotions to get, again, your existing customer base to try more things, purchase more frequently, experience your great offering more frequently. That's really compounds the success of the business. So I'm going to move on to the last part of it. We have about 15 minutes left. Hope this has been interesting. The homework here was just to create all those things, the biography, just remember this ninja guy, that's going to be you, ninja person. And then the last part of it, video 3, and again, these are 3 videos that you can find on my channel. The channel is Pastry Virtuosity on YouTube. If you get a chance, subscribe as well. Keep in touch on those things. Message me if you have any questions. If you want the other two, these are the workbooks I'm referring to. We have one here in the chat. If you want all three of them, let me know and I'll send them over to you, these PDFs that you can follow along with the classes. So, just offering this up. This was a class again from 2 years ago, kind of just post the initial shutdown from COVID, and in between we did have the weekly coaching, but without the coaching there's still a lot of value there. You've got 3 videos, you have the 3 videos, you've got the 3 workbooks, and then you have access to me to ask any questions. So that's my offer for right now, is to help everyone be a little bit better at PR. Okay, that's the goal. And then here, number 3 is executing the PR plan, right? You built it, we kind of considered our audience, we thought about the value, how do we know, what we do works, and now it's, that high profile publicity tactics and media training, right? How good are, you don't want to get a speaking gig if you can't talk, right? But you still may get interviewed, even speaking with, the fact is, like, the day-to-day, even speaking with your employees and the public, media training comes in handy, right? I think all too often we just want to be ourselves all the time, and that's good. I appreciate genuine people, but I think we may all agree that there's certain things we don't want to share in the workplace. That's more personal, right? I'm actually quite a private person, but I know the things I want to talk about in the public space, dessert, and develop a vernacular for speaking about those things. And that doesn't really change from when I'm talking to an employee, a trainee, a business owner, the public. Other people love dessert, other chefs. It's important to develop that demeanor. And then when you get a speaking gig or you're on a panel, or if you're asked to give an interview, you're really clear on those things. So I think doing a little media training never hurt anybody. And really, it's like anything else, the more you do it. I mean, one key reason for me, on the selfish side of doing these classes, like, to me it's a win-win, right? I'm trying to offer this information, but I'm trying to get more experience speaking like this, and I don't know any other way to do it than to set a date and be nervous and do it anyway. It's just the only way. And once we get things recorded, and try not to be too fancy this time out. Sometimes I get bogged down in, like, I'd like to have cool effects, and at least here we have a little logo on that, but you don't need any of that stuff. You need a message, be genuine, and maybe a little media training, developing the message, writing the publicity plan, and then a little bit about a press release, that's important. So for your toolkit, publicity plan, media kit, here's a couple you can see up here. If you download the packet or you get that 3rd packet, you'll see some more. But you can do a search online and see that it's almost like a 1, 2, maybe 3 page, and it's either going to promote you as a chef, promote you and the business, maybe promote the business. And what I like right now is seeing that these are design pieces. This can be part of a companion for your business of what's designed. Again, this is chess, right? It's not one thing in one editorial in a magazine, one radio or TV, and that's it. As you prepare for the telephone and live interviews like we're talking about, just a few tips, and I'll share some of those tips right now. It's know where you're going on, study the show, I don't care if it's a podcast, and in fact I love podcasts because you can just share that after, right? It doesn't even matter really, and you don't know where that's going. The opportunity right now for a podcast to be in multiple places, and podcasts, again, it's very conversational, and often you're talking to someone that's really excited about the subject, right? They could be customer, fan, other chef, the business owner, and you're talking about different things all the time. But taking that and repackaging it later, sharing the link, taking a clip, There's a lot of value there. But study the show that you're going on, no matter how small, just so you kind of know. Learn the host's name. What have they talked about? That you did your homework. Like, oh, I noticed you had so and so on the show a couple episodes back. Thought it was great. You can also understand the style of the interviewer. Pay attention to how you speak. Everybody talks too fast. Everybody talks too fast. So if you start out slower, you're going to be better there. And it's kind of good to not be too comfortable, right? Just realize that this is the moment for you, and don't slouch. If you need a beverage, it's okay, but don't be drinking coffee the whole time, right? I just drink coffee some of the time. And then, if it's appropriate, it's a visual medium, use your hands, like be expressive. Like, we're talking about something you're passionate about. Sometimes we need to see that, right? Otherwise it can be really static. Or like, move a little bit. If you're doing your own podcasting, just breaking it up with some images and some, like, here we have, like a video border, and then you can flip to like something that's more, just to get some differences, just so it's like something that looks a little different for the eye, just to break it up if you're in control of that. Smiling, of course, and just ignore the camera and really try to just be in the moment. And if it goes bad, it's okay, and move on. And if it goes great, the more and more. In terms of developing that message we're talking about, start with 3 and just pick 3 that these are the 3 that I want to share, right? These are the 3 messages. And too much is hard, too little, people hear it, and then you can kind of, or you can take a longer message and break it up into 3 parts. So if you have a longer opportunity talking about all of it, so things like, this is the current events, this is the product we're most proud of right now that's special, and maybe a limited time offer. Those are 3 good ways to structure some messaging. Or, this really cool thing happened. As a result, here's what we're doing about it. New offering, charitable event, and a reminder of what you do well, right? So there can be some things that are consistent, but we always want to bring that fresh thing in, so that media outlets know to check back to, because hey, they're always doing something interesting. What are they doing now? And when they have stories, then they'll start to reach out to you. In the beginning, you're reaching out to everyone saying, hey, notice me, let me be involved. And to that end, pitch letters. Part of the publicity plan is to, like, if we know where we want to go, how do we approach them? A little mini biography, headshot, and like a company fact sheet is pretty much all you need. Send the media list and say, here I am for these types of things, and they will reach back out. They'll reach back out to you with some opportunities. So it may not happen all the way. Start a spreadsheet. May not happen all the way the first time you reach out. You may send everything out, you spend all this time, then you get crickets. And the follow-up is important, but nobody wants to bother someone all the time and feel like they're being annoying. But then no one cares about your business as much as you do. So one good strategy is I'll start a spreadsheet of the outreach, so I know when I can bug them again. And you just have to pick the timing that feels right. Certainly a month later seems too long. I just emailed you, but then same week, next week could be too short. And if you place the second email, typically I'll get an email back saying, yes, I did see your email. At the moment, don't have anything for you, and then respond just really graciously. And I think, not too quickly, right? Just give it a few hours, next day, okay. And just have that cadence that you start to build, and a little bit of trust, even though there wasn't anything there. But a press release is something you can generate and just send out. And often this is a great way to get the message out, but then looking at that, a media outlet can say, well, I could work with this, right? I could work with it as is. Sometimes they'll publish it without even telling you. This is okay. But at least, again, it gets your contact out there. So you'll always write, and you can look at samples online, right, for all of this. But for immediate release, just letting you know this is current, it happened right now. My name, email, and phone number. This is the person. If you're doing your own, PR, this is the person if you need anything. And then work on those headlines. Like, what's attractive attention grabbing headline. Not made another cookie. I'm picking out cookies today, but like, we spend some time on that, like a good song, right? We all love music. Some of our favorite songs, it's like the first line's a killer, right? The first line just like, yeah, that's so perfect. Like that's so important. For a novelist, right? The first line, the first words, the first paragraph, it really draws you in, and you as a reader, as a listener, as a potential customer, start to get hooked. So like that, spend more time on that, and the rest will kind of flow from there. That leads sentence, right? And then have the 5 W's, who, what, where, when. Have the how, like just make sure it's like a complete story. Like, we didn't leave you hanging. We're doing this cool stuff, but when does it happen? How long is it for? Is it temporary? And then create the boilerplate. You may have already where it's, like mine is, changes sometimes too, but it's something that you can print over and over that gives people just the bullet point of what you want to know. Don't make it more than 2 sentences. Just say, so-and-so business, so-and-so person is a blank that does blank. For more information, here's where you go. That's it. And the shorter, really, again, the better. Be concise is more important than, telling more. We're really just trying to build up the interest so you have an opportunity in PR to tell more at another time, at another platform. Here's an editorial calendar sample. Again, there's tons online. It's just a way to track it. But it can be color-coded, so you're saying like which different types of media outlets. Could be radio is one color, could be your social media posts another color. I see a lot of social media calendars, but to me it's just so one-dimensional. It's because you did all that work for the social media, and like all these posts. I get a whole, in our space it's fun, right? Like food holidays, and there's like 3 food holidays in one day because it's Shake Day, but it's also Cookie Day, and it's also international, national, local, dessert day, and all is great. I'm just making fun of everything, but in reality, like it could be broken out much more, right? So again, we're going to do a short video, and that short video we're going to cut into 3 videos, and on Monday, Wednesday, Friday we're going to post the short snippets, and then indicate where that can go to watch more, and then that